Hello, guys. This is episode 15 of the Football Truth podcast. I'm honored and super happy to have back on our original guest, Stephen Callis from from the UK, Football Entangled UK. How's everything going, mate?
Yeah, great to be back again, my good friend. Since you're in the Middle East, I should say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And inshallah, you are well. God willing, brother. It's good to be back.
Shukran, inshallah. that, that's my Arabic. Kifak. But yeah, everything's doing good over here. Beirut, Lebanon is out of this world. I'm really looking forward to the future here, and I can, I can definitely I can definitely see the foundations in place to build out a really amazing off season facility for athletes to come and kind of unlock the higher levels of their physical and mental, let's say, performance that otherwise wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, I think you're in a prime location, obviously Middle East. You've had the World Cup. You've now got the explosion of what's happening in Saudi Arabia in terms of profile of players going there.
Mm.
And to be fair, over the last 6 to 8 months, the amount of actual FaceTimes I've had with those from the Middle East have gone through the roof. So you've got a prime location in terms of interest, but also I feel a bit of a central hub because Football Entangled is global.
Mm.
There's now this opportunity to kind of meet somewhere, and you're not really going to get better sunlight than the Middle East, let's be honest. So I think you're in a prime location for the lot, dude.
Yeah, and just last weekend, I went up to the mountaintops. There's a few places up here where in the winter you can go skiing. Actually, it's so high
Oh,
up,
wow.
and the brilliant thing in the summer is this high altitude sunlight is something different that really nowhere else in the world you can get it. I mean, obviously there's like the Andes Mountains in South America. There's the Himalayas, but this, I could be at the beach and drive half an hour, and I'm up above the clouds. Ah,
Oh, wow.
it's out of this world. And like, uh, one of my friends here, Alex Lobos, gave me the best quote. Lebanon is the place where and Jesus turned water into wine, and and so I think that's fair enough reasoning to be here so far.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure.
Yeah, but anyways, back on to the Premier League is back and in full flight. And funny enough, one could say that this was predicted by somebody. Injuries are going off like we can't believe. Multiple teams in the Premier League, and as you know, Stephen, these clubs have multi million dollar facilities, training staff, physios, acupuncturists, a massage therapist, everything in between, and yet they have players that are worth millions of dollars,
Yeah.
having non-contact ACL injuries.
It's unbelievable how rife it is. It's been that busy from injuries so far this season. I haven't been able to sit down and watch them all. Whereas normally injuries happen, I look at them, I go, right, contact, non-contact, what could be avoided, how could this change, what's the dynamics of what's going on, am I aware if they post online about personal trainers and so forth, that they use all these variables I do my best to look at. But there's just been so many, even at Chelsea alone, like there's all right, fair enough, there's a couple of injured players that were coming through last season to return, but there's still another five, six injured players already at the beginning of the season, and we've played two matches. If that's one club alone, I can't keep up observing what is going on, why is it happening, how is it happening, or looking at it through the lens to my best knowledge of the hows and the whys. Basically, I'm always aware there's variables I can't consider, um, but it's sad. It's a really sad state of affairs, um, and more so from a psychological input on the individual, that other players are going to do that and take their positions. Like
Mm.
the teams aren't messing around now. Like they know that the product has to be super hot from a business perspective, and there's so many hungry kids who are fit, who are able to do that stuff. And no matter how talented you are, and we both speak about talent being the top of the pole, if you can't stay fit, talent isn't going to do anything for you at the end of the day. It will just give you a little bit of a rep of he could have been, he should have been. Realistically, no, you need to take control of your body, and this is an individual perspective. Each player has to go, I'm worth a multi-million pound contract. I need to know what my body is doing right or wrong right now. I need to know what's being improved. Not just letting it be outsourced to someone who's going to go, oh, here's a needle, or here's a manipulation, or here's this extension exercise for your legs. That's just nonsense. It's leading us to nowhere, if I'm being really honest.
Mm.
Otherwise, these injuries wouldn't be as rife as what they are. There's variables attached to them, and we've got to allow ourselves to continue to understand that the human body is the most powerful and important thing right here. These players don't understand it if they're breaking down. If you're not breaking down and you're a Lionel Messi, you don't need to know this stuff, if I'm really honest. But if you're not and you are breaking down, you've got to take control. You've got to have a bit of personal responsibility.
No doubt, no doubt. That's one of the biggest things I want to really pound into the individual footballer is
Yeah.
if you get injured, the club will replace you. There's no sympathy. Even though, ironically, the club are making you do things that could possibly increase your likelihood of injury.
Yeah.
That catch-22, you have to kind of to put to one side and realize if you get hurt, your job is likely to be gone very soon.
Yeah. It's really interesting that I've got two stories that I'll briefly share from, just over the past season. So, in the off season, I'm able to reflect on what happened with my personal players over the last year, successes, where we're going with things, and just like you share, in my general persona, who I am, how I deliver. I'm very multifactorial in my approach. I'm not singular. I'm very holistic, and I let there be room for things to breathe as well. So one of the players, he was questioning about the gym throughout the season, and I do my best to unattach in a lot of the conversations surrounding it, because if a person is contracted to certain things, I'm not going to fight against their contract. I want to work with their body. I want them to understand, and I want them to ask really good questions. And part of those questions are, if it's their trainer saying do X, Y, and Z, like, it should be meticulously mapped out as to how this is going to improve, what markers they're going to do, what responsibility they're going to take if things don't turn out the way that they're predicting. You as a player should push back onto them in the right way of going, look, I care about my body. I want you to be super detailed, and if you can't be detailed, it means that these questions need to be answered elsewhere. And that's where I hold like this whole power within the question. The individual, the player, can really learn how to ask smart questions, and if the answers can't be answered, which I don't believe they can, but I'm open to be proved wrong in any type of situation, they'll then start looking elsewhere and undertaking their own body. But one of them is he wanted to undertake the gym. He'd gone on the whole Ronaldo and certain players have got these great benefits. And I said that same thing, that go back to the S&C coach, say, look, yeah, I'm going to commit to you for 12 weeks. Here's where my body is currently at. I want you to not only give me the program, I want you to detail what the metrics are, what the outcome is, what responsibility is being taken. So we did it for a few weeks. Wasn't feeling necessarily great, wasn't necessarily feeling negative. They went into pre-season, they played Liverpool, so in the academy. I think it's either the under-21s or the under-19s. They lost 5-0. And they're a good team. Like I've been and watched them play a few times, and I was really impressed. So it isn't necessarily it was Hull playing them. It wasn't necessarily an unknown team, so to speak. But what he took away from that is he looked at every single player, and apart from the musculature around the calves, they were skinny individuals. He said, and that was enough for him to go, I didn't need to go down this route of the gym. I've seen, and he sees it week in, week out with his own eyes, but he's seen a team that is very good, his team, receive a harsh lesson against an outstanding Liverpool team. And when he observed what the body types were like, how they were producing athletic performance, it didn't marry up to those people that would spend time in the gym and what you're chasing from that paradigm. So that was one particular lesson. And the other one that I'll also share is, the ability to ask these questions are so important. So he, in pre-season as well, he was asked to do a set of sprints, and this is where the power of the individual and knowing your body really comes into things. So I think it was 8 sprints they were asked to do to finish off, and after the 5th sprint, the coach turned around and said, "No, that's it. You don't have to do no more." But this is where the ego comes in, because 2 other players chose to go and do their sprints, and he had already stopped, and then he had thought, if I don't do them, I'm going to be looked upon in a negative light. The issue with this being is that when he's heard no more sprints, his nervous system, without him knowing, and I'm sure if he was in tune with his body at the moment, would have gone, I've calmed down a little bit. It would have done that and gone, oh, I can relax now. And if your body has gone into a state of relaxation, but then you're automatically, I've got to go and sprint again, that's mixed signals, and you increase the likelihood for injury. And he had felt something in his quad, I believe it was. It was much ado about nothing, but it was something that was like, if I had actually been in control of my body at that particular point, if I'd been so in tune with it, I would have known that I didn't need to do those sprints for my ego to compete with others. But what I could have chose to do if I wanted to be seen in a good light is go pick up the ball, knock out 200 or 300 keepy uppies. I'm still engaged within the training session. I appreciate my coach has said you don't need to do those bits, but just to show them I'm doing a little bit more, I'm going to go and do something over there for 5-10 minutes. And it would have just calmed his nervous system down even more. He wouldn't have had a powerful output. So I go back to it, like the harsh lessons are there to be learned, and the simple ones are there. You've got to listen to your body, and you've got to observe the greatness around you as well. So yeah, it's been a super interesting start to the season. Going back to the main injury purpose, but I think a lot of them are really avoidable if you start listening to your body. Most players are not aware of how to listen to their body.
That's a big point. And I think what you said about observing greatness is something right now that we're seeing. We're seeing a young player at FC Barcelona coming in named Lamine Yamal, and this guy is I'd be surprised if anyone told me he wasn't good. And he's how much does he weigh? Like 140 pounds. The guy is light as a twig, and yet he's faster, stronger, better on the ball, more exciting than some winger on Hertha Berlin who's like 30 years old and he's been in the gym for 12, 14 years. Yeah. People don't put those two things together. Why do you think that is?
Part of it is contractual. These people here are paying my wages. This is what the culture dictates I do. So therefore, for me to fit in, and I really feel that that's a hard thing. If you feel like I've got to fit in, you're going to end up doing the things you want to do. I think a lot of them don't, and I'll go back to it. I don't know if they don't know how to, or they choose not to ask intelligent questions. This is your body. This is things that you can be aware of how you're thinking, how you're feeling, what's coming up for you in terms of emotions. There's consistent thought patterns in your head, and then ask questions. Something doesn't feel right, if something doesn't look right, if something doesn't smell right, you know to ask a question or to stay away from it. And I would think along that journey, they've just gone, oh, well, this has come up, and this person over here seems more intelligent than me. I will just have to believe in what they say. But it's such a foolish way of doing things, because there are so many more people out there who have got millions of degrees that I have no idea in. Yet, if a set of nonsense comes out of their mouth, I have the ability to start to hone in upon that. Is it tone of voice is unconvincing? Is it the body language says something? Mm-hmm. Is it just the information is not clear cut to me? There's always going to be one little tidbit that stands out to go, now I need to investigate. I think they choose not to. And part of that is the reason why they've gone down these paths, and they've not fulfilled certain things that could have been fulfilled. They've gone, in so many routes, they've got so many great things, and I don't discredit it, but we all know when we see a unique talent and how impressionable that is upon the game, why would you want to stay, or why would you want to veer away from what's harnessed that talent, that uniqueness about you? And I put this on my Instagram not too long ago, and I have discussions with players about this. An overweight fat kid who has got a great first touch is far more beneficial than the fittest person who doesn't know how to kick a ball. If you're going to put someone on the team, you're going to go, this guy here has got the first touch, you bet he's all right, can't move around the pitch that well, but I'll tell you what, he's smart enough to do that. He's caught my eye. This one over there, runs around a lot, bit of a headless chicken. Mm. Makes no sense, like hone your talent, ask better questions.
Probably one of my best metaphors that I use for this kind of for this kind of scenario is, it literally does not matter how hard you can strike a ball if you miss the goal every time.
100%.
And people don't get that. It's like it's the same thing in the gym. People make this a big, wide, false assumption that because I can lift another 50, 100 pounds on the barbell, does that actually result in power or speed? Or does it not take away from my coordination or my skill on the football pitch?
Yeah, I agree. Even the simplicity, if an individual wants to get faster, the fastest people on this planet are 100-meter sprinters. They have to sprint to get better at sprinting. They may choose to go and do other things to support that, but the actual primary thing is sprinting. Yet so many players will go and do so many other things, their gym work or whatever it is they're doing, to perceive to put on muscle because that muscle is going to equate to being faster. When realistically, they just need to go on a good sprint program, and their club should be able to provide that quite easily. If I'm
Yeah.
honest, like, it isn't something that's outside the box here. It can be ticked quite easily. It's just that this whole other segment goes. We've got to go to muscle activation. We've got to go to this particular exercise. And some of the exercise, some of the clubs are really good that I've dealt with. I'll be honest with you. Like, I'm not a fan. I don't prescribe the S&C programs, but I take on board the feedback, and we go to better or worse scenarios from what's been chosen for them. Some of them are putting in back squats. I'm like, why? Like, why would you want to tell the individual, let's get a stiff spine here? When I leave here, I'm going to feel like, this is the feedback of the
Yeah.
players. When I leave here, I feel stiff as I go through my motions. That doesn't compute to an individual who then has to go and locomote and change direction at all these different forces and velocities put upon them because of it. I just think, have that common sense and care, duty of care as a club, which they're spending millions for, but as a player, I just think they've got to continue to wake up and smell the coffee in this way and go, do you know what? There is a different way. I can ask a question. I don't have to be an outcast when I ask questions. I can just do it in a way that's going to yield a beneficial response for me and the coach, or for me and whoever the trainer is. Because if they're not on the pitch, what benefit are they to the club?
And that's the funniest thing is clubs will happily pay these guys when they're injured all year. Uh,
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And the amount of money, and look, like, this summer, I've seen the money that's being spent, of course, but also I've really unattached from it because it's become clear that it is what it is, and no view is going to change it. No player who costs 115 million pounds, or one or two players that would be in that category, would be worth that money.
mm,
So I don't attach it to money equates to talent. Money does equate to pressure, I believe.
mm.
But there are so many talented players, and it's a really good example looking at the Brighton and Hove Albion Football Club model. Like, they get top tier talent. They make a lot of mistakes along the way, but they get top tier talent for next to nothing. So money doesn't really equate to the talent that's there. Every individual's got that talent, and they don't have to cost a lot of money to be able to express and show it at the level they think that they can.
Yeah, I think about the money is right now, like this past summer, we saw a lot of clubs spend over that six-figure mark. Or no, the over the 100 million mark. And so this for example, we saw Arsenal bought Declan Rice, Chelsea bought Caicedo from Brighton, Real Madrid bought Jude Bellingham, and the
Yeah,
only one of those guys that look like they're actually worth 100 million is Jude Bellingham. And
yeah.
so the money itself isn't going to be an uh, accurate description for the player.
The funny thing about Bellingham, he's the most likely to be injured out of the three, though.
Bellingham,
If
yeah,
you watch, yeah, he's always got a strapping on his
yeah, he
leg, and
does.
his tibia doesn't articulate very well. It doesn't rotate very well. So that, more often than not, he's going to put a little bit more pressure in a knee valgus position, and we'll see at the end of the season. But he's always got the strapping on there. So yes, in terms of talent and output, absolutely worth it. Let's see if he does or doesn't stay fit for that season. But I know he does struggle with injuries in and around the knee, just looking at him historically.
Yeah, and sadly or unfortunately, however you want to put it, Real Madrid does not have does not have a very good record with injuries. They've bought in a lot of big players and ruined them.
Yeah,
Kaká,
yeah,
Gareth
yeah.
Bale. I mean,
Yeah.
Eden Hazard as well, but everyone argues that everyone argues that it was his fault, but we don't know.
In every situation, it's going to take two to tango.
Yeah,
That's what it is. I know from just personal conversations in and around London that Eden Hazard off season wouldn't look after himself very well and stuff like that. Um, in terms of body composition, he would probably eat foods that would put on a lot of body weight, but at the same time there would be mitochondrial deficiencies as a byproduct of this. So there's other angles that we can look at from there. But at the same time, if you're investing that money into a player, what are you providing for them? How are you ensuring you're looking after your asset? And this is a really interesting one, actually, because I had to go through a couple of meetings this year that didn't pull off in terms of players, but I basically had to sign like some NDAs because um, the clubs don't want players training with people outside. And I've had two different conversations on this front, and I'll explain them both. On this particular one, like the player was injured, he's worth a lot of money, wanted to, come back, but what the club is doing isn't sufficient, so he did the right thing. He looked around and stuff like that. He looked down our avenue, he'd asked some questions, which was really good. It's probably a step too far away from what he knows as comfortable in terms of osteopath and, this person here, physiotherapist. So he didn't go down that route, which is absolutely fine. But it's worrying that if a club who has got it contracted that he's not allowed to be using people outside of their sphere, that players are actually leaving that sphere to go and do that. Like, it means that something in their model is clearly broken for players to do that. The second one, it kind of looks along the lines of if the individual themselves as well, they're, what was the case in particular? Give me a second. We'll come back to this one just because it's flown out of the head as I was describing. But we'll come back to that in a split second. But what I was getting at is that the players, if they're having to leave and go outside of what they're contracted to do, that was the second one I'll speak about now. There isn't anyone in charge, like a pastoral care from these clubs. So if it isn't in your contract that you can't use people outside of the club, why isn't there someone at each club who then goes and has meetings with, or has FaceTimes with, all the trainers that person is using? This is a multi-million-pound player you have here, talking Premier League level. They're not fully trusting into what you're giving them as a club, so they've chosen to go elsewhere. You as a club have allowed this to happen, but then he goes and uses this personal trainer or this therapist, and even if they use me, for instance, like it's I think someone at a club should be having a conversation to make sure that it all goes back into one for this individual's action plan of betterment of moving forward. I'll use an easy example, but if this club is giving back squats on their lowers session, but then they go and see their external PT who also has a heavy lowers put for them, how is that conducive? And then we're saying that the players who don't have a great understanding of their body, should go and converse this information, relay this information. They're not going to do that. They don't know what's going on. They just know that they're paying to be better because the man with the qualification says this equals better, but it doesn't. It's leading you down the garden path of injury. So it's really interesting with the money front. It's really interesting how the clubs are operating. There are huge gaps to really secure and get a better understanding of what is going on for each person. And it's really cost effective when you weigh it up. But for some reason, the clubs don't want to go down these routes because they're not interested in a player having a holistic approach. They just want their centered approach. Or there's a level of laziness and going, well, we'll just let the player do what they're doing. And if they're fit, they're fit. If they're injured, they're injured. That's barbaric to be like that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think what you brought up, there's going to be a change as more and more players get injured and the bigger salaries they get. They'll just say, oh, I'll just hire my own team of physios and all that. And I think what's going to happen is the performance and health side is going to merge with the agency, with the financial the representation. So the dynamic between, let's say, the health side and the club become on equal footing. Because right now, basically, it's like this: the club does what they want. Any kind of outside coach is just frowned upon and is just ignored, basically. Even if they help fix issues that the club's staff couldn't fix, which I've seen with my own clients and with with you and other colleagues in the space. And it's just really funny, sad, unfortunate, all those different adjectives. But what can we do?
No, it's interesting. Look, I've had two different agents call me over the last season for the exact same thing, like to refer me players on for movement specific development. So that as the results come and people become more aware, there is this gap, in the market, and there is a way that what we do blends clearly into the bigger picture of what football is in terms of a business and their structure and so on and so forth. They have their S&C coaches, they have their osteo, physio, etc. like that. They have their sports scientists in there. But who do they have that actually takes care of how they move their body? There really isn't anyone. They might hire in a Pilates instructor, but the issue with Pilates, and it can be great for people in general, but when we're looking at the specificity of the gait cycle, and whether it's the fascial connection, whether we're looking to create better pressurization in between the rib cage and the pelvis, all these things that we speak about, there is a specific way of bringing that in. And Pilates, for instance, doesn't offer it in that context. There is a movement specific practice available here that can be brought into relationship or harmony with how the clubs operate without it hindering what they've already got. Because I know that's what it is. People fear things. We're going to fear for our jobs, fear for our money, fear for change. I understand it. I go through those cycles as an individual, so we're no different whatever realm we're in. But at the same time, there is an opportunity to be cohesive. My bottom dollar belief is once the player goes through that experience, 9 times out of 10, when they have a better feeling about their body, who they are, how it operates, they express their football in a far greater capacity compared to not. Just by going, here's the exercise, more force, more tension, go, 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 go. And in fact, the football industry is very driven like that, more, more, more. But who's actually saying, let's experience this movement? What's coming in as you internally rotate the tibia? How do you feel? What's the pressurization here? Do you feel your glutes as you squeeze the arch of your... All these little things there actually allow them to become more aware of who they are as an individual. Once they feel that, they'll go, I feel really good. And they go and express themselves. It's missing. It's not there. It can be there if they want it to be.
That's one of the funniest things that I've seen with all my, well, most of my clients, and especially like this past summer, was working with a few major players in the Premier League, and I asked them, "What do you feel?" And they don't know what they feel. They're like, what do you mean?" I go, "No, like what sensations did you feel when you did this exercise?" And then they have to go back and do it again to try and re-feel. And so what you're saying is spot on in terms of, can you actually feel what you're doing? Can you actually feel how your running feels? Because I mean, the better you get at that, making changes is almost instantaneous if you know what you're doing and have the right coach around you.
100%. 100%.
Another funny story I wanted to mention is last year I was talking with a player that was on loan from one of the major London clubs, and he was playing in a different league on loan in Europe, and the physios at that club were making fun of him because he was always out injured, even though he was 22 years old. They would call him an old man.
Oh wow!
And they'd make fun of him to his face in the physio, in the physio room, in the non-athletic room, we'll say.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like this guy reaches out to me, wants help, and then I offer help, and then never follows up, has more injuries, goes back to his main club, has more injuries. He plays good when he plays. He just always gets injured, and like he misses his chance to become a starter. And I think that theme is pretty consistent around the whole game.
The thing that I really don't get with players that allow themselves to go through that cycle is, look, from a psychological perspective, I understand that they're going to want the magic pill. They're going to want that quick fix that does it. And when they see something that's a little bit different, that has the ability to allow them to excel in a way that their body hasn't excelled before, I understand that they're going to be cautious around it.
Yeah.
However, if they just thought to themselves, if I explore how my body works, and just to say this is my current baseline here of injury, maybe I can go to here with this other thing. Maybe it isn't here that I believe I can go, but maybe it is just this little bit beyond. Maybe I learned something new. Fantastic, that's a great opportunity, and that's what's open from. Whereas at the minute you're going here, you're trying to go here, and you're just going straight back down here because of injury, going straight back down here because of injury. Allow yourself just to experience that a little bit more than what you have, and you might just open up this opportunity to go to new ceilings that you've never had before. But that little gamble there is far more beneficial than what you're currently doing if you're getting the same results that you've always got, which is being injured. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I have said it before, and I'll have to say it again. the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, and somehow
Mhm.
miraculously expecting different results, which I see on the daily basis from a lot of players at the highest level, and also the hundreds of people in my DMs on Instagram. Like,
Yeah.
I can go on the DM history, and I can go back up the history of the messages and see 5 months ago they were asking me about some ankle sprain, and then 5 months before that they're asking me about hamstring, and then 1 year before that it was the knee or the hip or the back or something, and then I'm like, mate, don't you see the pattern? You keep asking for free tips as if a band-aid's going to solve a whole issue you have going on there in your whole body. Uh, but in terms of actionable things, what's one of the things that you like to do with a new client to help them feel themselves better, to help them actually feel the nuances of movement?
Yeah. It's really interesting. So, I go through a few different lenses of assessment with them. And the actual first part of the process is for them to reflect. I ask them to watch the assessment twice. Just watch it as a purist, and then watch it as someone who wants to write down questions. So this whole process of them writing down questions and things that they understand, don't understand, directions they want to move in, is all geared towards them asking better questions. And for the first time, probably in a long time, they're having to ask these questions about things that they might know a little bit about, that they might know nothing about, that they're fearful of, because this is my body and I feel like I should know it, but I don't know it. So the objective there is to get them going, can I ask better questions? Because throughout the whole process of working with me, I want them to ask really good questions, questions that I don't even know the answer to.
Yeah.
Because if they're able to do that, it means that looking in directions that I can't think of, which is perfect, which is what we want of a player. Can I allow myself to think of things that I can't currently think of? Can I go to places I don't know exist? That's what we want to be able to happen. So that's one of the first things that I like to do. From a movement perspective, I do go quite detailed, and then I like to back off and give just two or three simple things that we can start to change. And the reinforcement comes from here is the fact that I don't know personally what variables are going to affect other variables. I can give you one input and it can change many things, or I can give you one input and it changes one thing. But if I give you so many inputs, I don't know where the change is coming from. So I just like to give them one or two things. Normally, a breathing based exercise. A lot of people have got I'll use the term forward head posture, but I like to use a particular type of positioning of the tongue and how we have the airflow go to the back of the head and create a type of expansion there. Once we learn that, we can then learn posterior expansion of the rib cage as well. So there's looking at it through that lens. And then there's a physical element as well. And if I'm honest, the deeper I go into it, the physical elements that we give, and they can be a go-to based perspective. I'll use that as one framework. There's other frameworks that I weave in depending on what's going on for an individual. But let's just use that as a terminology because most of the players understand that reference point. It's just a chance for them to flow and actually feel what their body feels like in certain positions because they've never gone to those positions before. And then all of a sudden, oh, my hips move here, and if my femur moves here, I feel like something becomes unstuck, or it feels good, or I feel my glutes. They're spending time allowing themselves to experience their body in a way that they haven't experienced it just through general movement. When they start to understand that, it becomes a little bit easier to then cue the real simple things of pressure management in the body in certain positions, because that's all it is. If I inhale and I get good pressure management, and it depends, on whose tensegrity model you like to look at, but there's multiple diaphragms in the body from what we reported when we look at it through a tensegrity lens.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm inhaling and I feel the diaphragm of the arches, the diaphragm that sits in the pelvis, the diaphragm that's here, the diaphragm that's in the palate of the mouth, all expand as one. Can I feel the cranium expand? And I know how to hold that pressure. Then all of a sudden, as I'm running, my shoulders has something to talk off of. So it's this whole pressure management. But if I just give that to someone off the bat, and I know this through my own experience, and some players are fantastic, other players need hand holding. And I don't say that in a disrespectful way. It's a very truthful way. Like, me at certain aspects in life will need my hand held through certain things, and I need a good mentor there to do it. And other times you don't, you just crack on and do it. So I'll do this hand holding part. But if I don't take them down this garden path, they're just going to disregard the information so soon because it isn't as actionable as what they see on the Instagram world. I see this exercise, this dynamic movement that's going to change me. I'm going to put my head on my foot. They're really good experiences to have, but at the same time, it doesn't teach them the root of pressure management within their body. And that's where I think a lot of this comes when we look at it. Pressure management, tensegrity, how can we practice the two? And I'll just go on a little bit, digress a little bit and allow myself to say that I think it's okay to have different practices under one umbrella. So for my players, I have really good holistic practices, and there's no reason to necessarily conflate the two. You practice this one thing over here, you practice this thing over there, you practice, and then you forget it and you let your body move forward in time and space and see how it turns out. If you're trying to hold on to it and compute something that's already computed, our brain is a central processing unit. It receives information from all the different senses, and some people out there will say there's 22 different senses in the body. So beyond sight and hearing and taste, we have temperature regulation. I have heartfelt moments. I have gut instincts. Like they say that there's 22 different senses, some of them. All these senses, they gather information in, and it goes to the central processing unit to give us an output depending upon safety and survival as the two prime mechanisms of the brain. If I'm trying to hold a thought in here about doing something, I'm just giving it two signals. It's going to crash. I'm going to have to press Control Alt Delete on the body and probably get injured. Like, you can't hold the thought about the thing you want to do. Go and do the thing. If you think about doing a flip flap to nutmeg someone, the moment has gone. You have to feel it, and it has to happen, and it pulls off. Like Ronaldinho isn't sitting there going, "The ball's going to come, and I'm going to flip flap you now, done." No, it's fluid. It's a flow. We can't necessarily describe it perfectly. We've got good words to have an understanding of the flow state, but at the same time, it just happens, and you've got to allow yourself that level of freedom to express from who you are, what you know, and what you're about to do, without any mental reservations. If you've got mental reservations, the moment is gone. And that's, as I say, the same for the training aspect. You can have these individual training components, this holistic approach, and it's fine not to conflate. Because I saw lots of people, and even myself at first, you're thinking, right, how can foot fascia connect him with bows and corners, and at the same time, how can I get the perfect breath with the perfect tongue posture? And you're just going to go, oh my God, I'm going to explode in a minute. Like, it's too much information. So realistically, they're their own practices. Get into them, enjoy them, let them be the minimal effective dose consistently over a long period of time. You will yield the results. You will do things that you didn't believe you could do on a football pitch. And if I'm honest, I didn't expect the amount of feedback that I've had over the last 2 years of incorporating the foot fascia and then the movement work I do in the gait cycle and the results it's yielded. It's changed people's lives, and these are their voice notes to me, expressing on a very deep level of gratitude what it's done for them. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize how profound this would be for you in your situation, actually. Like, I knew it would help you out. I just didn't know how deep it goes down the rabbit hole. But people have got such new perspective, and they're expressing football at a level that just wasn't possible to them before. And that's the biggest thing for me. Even what I say, what I do, what I want to bring to the table, it cannot affect the footballing aspect in any way, shape, or form other than being beneficial. Your game, ability to play, supersedes me as a coach. I need to tone myself down to let the game do so much more for you than what I can. I think coaches are scared to say this. I love, like, top coaches. I love people like Bielsa. They're all about the game. All about the game. That's what they want to be played. Not the nonsense. Let's play the game. Football, here it is. People are scared to do that as coaches because it means that they're reducing what their value is, because that thing is more important. But the thing that is most important is that footballer's end result. It's their career, it's their journey. And if they can fulfill that with talent and being fit as their kind of two prime beacons, then the job is done to the maximum. Other people are not doing that in the industry. So I know it's a bit of a tangent and a rant, to be honest, in some respects, but it's an honest perspective of what I've seen and felt over the last year. And if other people, they hear that and they take it as a level of truth and explore it within that good sort of nature of truth, I think they will come to good conclusions about what they're trying to do and how it's coming over a longer period of time. There are instantaneous changes, of course, people feel things, but that consistency over a period of time, being kind to yourself along the journey, fighting where you need to fight and chilling out and relaxing when you need to. Like so many players as well, like they've enjoyed eating food with friends in a way that they've never felt possible before. And I just go on about, like, I would see Diego Maradona, they're sitting outside, barefoot on the grass, long table, breaking bread with one
Hmm.
another. There's chemistry that happens on the inside that you can't describe, you know? And once you feel that and you go, this person here, he cares for me, I care for him, you take that onto the football pitch and you achieve things you didn't realize. So I think there's so much more that goes into this game than what people are prepared to pay attention towards. And it's because they want the one thing that's being sold to them, regardless of what it is. They want to be sold that information. This is it. You're going to be the pro from this one thing. You're going to buy these grippy socks and it's going to change your life. Grippy socks, no. It's not going to happen like that. But you understanding you by investing in yourself and asking really good questions will enable you to have more bandwidth, more understanding, more space to express from. So I've loved the last year, to be honest, because I've learned so much from my players, from them being them. Brilliant.
And that's a good point. You know, a coach or a guider, uh, a leader of a leader of transformation, I guess we can call ourselves. It's so important to learn from your clients. If you don't do that, you're kind of just ultimately you're gonna hurt the people that you're trying to help. You don't actually be
100%.
humble enough to say, okay, let's change this, let's change that, let's make some improvements, let's drop that.
Yeah, I agree. You know, and as I say, it's even why earlier on, like I'm cautious using the term go to. Go to has a great reference, has a great understanding, a great observation. But then I've had people come back to me from that term that they've gone experienced and like, this is the one thing, this is it, this is the ultimate. And it's no, it's an expression, it's an observation, it's an understanding, it has practical application towards movement. It doesn't break down every component and it doesn't actually work for everybody, but it does take someone from point A to point B and they get a better understanding. And it's like, right, with this platform, now what can I go and do? Where else do I need to achieve success within my body?
Mm-hmm.
What movements do I want to own, which correlate into the gait cycle, which allow me to express as a human on the football pitch more? So I just think don't get too attached to the words. You know, they're not the be all and end all. Your expression as a player is the ultimate here in what we're trying to do and achieve.
I think you brought up a really good thing earlier that I want to double down on is the opportunity to experience new sensations, new movements that a lot of trainers take away from you, and that little mini journey of experiencing a new sensation, a new movement, a new uh, articulation of certain biomechanical pieces is in of itself the prize. And a lot of especially in the gym where it's almost like frowned upon to mention these things, you're doing the opposite of that. You're forcing things down your throat, and you're like numbing pain. You're trying to force your glutes to activate in the gym, and then somehow on the pitch they're gonna magically turn on because you tell them to. I always laugh when these guys, like, I talk to these guys that are doing uh, Nordic curls for years, and they have the strongest Nordic curls. And then I ask them, have you ever felt your glutes when you walk or when you run or anything like that? And they're speechless. They have no idea what I'm talking about. And so it just defeats the whole purpose of what this whole thing is about. It's about getting better at your sport. It's not increasing a number on the barbell or looking fancy on social
Yeah,
media.
dude, couldn't agree more with what you're sharing. You know, and the other thing that would be really helpful, and again, it's really difficult because of the egotistical nature within the industry, the presence that people value upon building their social media status and so on and so forth, and their clout chasing and bits and bobs like that. If they turned around and said, this other thing over there, I don't know what it does, and I don't do that myself, but here's what I do, and here's what the results I get from my clients.
Mm.
I think it's fantastic if you do that. If they're going down that route, but what they end up doing is going, well, I'm not going to go and investigate that thing over there. I don't quite understand the body in the way that they do, so I'll just dismiss it. I'll talk nasty upon it, and as a byproduct of that, I'm going to create this little barrier of friends that are going to follow me, and we're going to go down this journey. You don't care about your client if you're doing that, if I'm really honest. You really don't. What you should do is, if I reflect and go, I don't understand that, I'm not scared to say I don't understand that thing. But here's what I do understand. Here's the journey I go on. Here's the directions I look at. Here's the results that we get. And then people can go, well, actually, I see validity in that. And then maybe I might choose to explore one or two of those things down there. You don't have to if you don't want to, but at least that way you've got a little bit of an understanding to go why I might dislike something or why I disagree with it. But most times out of 10, if I had a player that could get clearly better at something and it doesn't contradict what we're trying to achieve and it plays into it, then I'm going to offer that as a service. Like one of my players, I've recently sent him for Rolfing sessions. Ida Rolf, you've got, she's the one who basically founded what we understand of fascia in terms of hands and manipulation in terms of directing tissues in certain areas. And I think it's a great experience for him to go through his 12 sessions. So it would have been anatomy trained by Tom Myers, but there isn't anybody that's within the local area. So the next best thing we looked at is the Ida Rolf 12 series. And he had one session and he had never felt so free. They looked at the shoulders and the arm swing in their first session. And just by gentle manipulation of the tissue and direction and opening up the diaphragm in specific ways, he felt experience in space he never had before in his body. It's not a harsh manipulation and a clip. It's very gentle. And 9 times out of 10, people need a gentle approach. They don't need a harsh approach. The world is harsh enough as it is, and we already go back to fetal position, flexion. We're scared. Yeah. We don't realise that we're scared, but we are scared in terms of what our bodies are showing us and so forth like that. So as a byproduct of him having this new space, this new ability to breathe, this new swing in his arms, you can go and train in that particular position. Your body has an opportunity to remember what it's done in that particular position. You can express new things in front of your coach that you never knew you could do because your body can go into positions it couldn't do before, which directly relate to the gait cycle and freedom of movement. Fantastic. Wow, the coach can see this. I felt this. I come away feeling like a new person. So for me, if I have something that marries up and it doesn't take away from the end result, I'm not scared to go down those garden paths. I want the best, whether that's with me or beyond me. I don't really care about this whole middle bit. I would like you to work with me, fantastic. But at the same time, ask better questions. And I think when you ask better questions, you will work with someone like me or yourself or someone who's gone down that field who's far more intelligent than myself. But they'll go down that journey. So yeah, I just think we have this opportunity to speak better. And I think that's a personal responsibility of each person. But again, I understand that people won't want that. They want the whole, these socks are going to change my footballing career, this one thing I need to be sold to. But realistically, I think people can go beyond that and they can ask really good questions and get really good results.
Yeah, just last week, someone reached out to me, like wanting to pay me to sell this, like a football sock that had the grip on the bottom and it had built-in shin guards and had a few other things that were special about it. I told them, no, it's a waste of my time, waste of your time. This is a joke.
Yeah.
And I mean, all over Instagram, you see for example, there's like the pads that you put on the top of your foot inside the cleat, for the metatarsals, as if maybe you should just fix your feet. I don't know.
Yeah.
And that theme is constant. It's just people trying to sell the quick fix. And I think as a footballer, as you mature, you realize the quick fix is never the answer. Because then you're actually losing the opportunity to grow from whatever kind of conflict you're experiencing in the body.
Yeah. One of the hardest lessons, and it's in my early conversations with people, when there's different stages of cell turnover and what happens within the body. Some studies will say that fascial remolding will take 6 months up to 18 months. There's I think it's Wolff's law, which looks at bone remodeling, which can take 4 years, for instance. Like they're all on a time scale quite long, and people don't like that.
Yeah.
Like they just don't. I'm going to have to commit to this. I'm going to have to actually put some work in here. I'm going to have to do something. But they don't realize that they will experience benefits week in, week out. There will be some downtimes. There are times that your body's not going to do what it wants to do, but that's because you've got to learn about rhythms of the world and how the rhythms of the world directly match into your circadian rhythm. So there's all these other aspects. I'm not just going to say, if you go down this 24 months, it's going to be progressively better. But at the same time, you will continually experience good things along that journey compared to not doing it. And I try my best to put it in a bit of a framework. I'm very cautious with language. So a lot of players, they kind of have this whole I fall off the bandwagon type mentality. So I've fallen off, and then I compound this negative effect with other negative things. Oh well, I stayed up late playing computer, and then I've eaten all these things that are not beneficial for me, and then this followed into the next day because I didn't train good. They get caught in this bit of a vicious cycle because they have this mentality of I need to be on it or I'm off it. I tend to say that they're in a 24-month bubble, and whatever happens within there, they're still within their bubble. So they can fall left, they can fall right, but it doesn't change what's gone on, what's been built within that bubble. So it should hopefully allow them to have a bit of a mental mindset that allows that I just carry on. It's all part of my journey. If I fall to the left a little bit, it's fantastic. It just means that I make a better decision when the next opportunity arises. And then I build on that success. I go, you know what, Stephen, I made a good decision there. Here's the next good decision that I'm going to make off the back of that. And then I celebrate my wins along the way, just like I would celebrate on the football pitch a fantastic 3 points. You've got to allow yourself to go through those emotions in every opportunity. And, I just go back to all the documentaries I've watched and a lot of the Southern American players. They just celebrate things in such great ways that we don't allow ourselves to anymore. I don't know how they celebrate there anymore, but these are looking at videos of growing up and stuff like that. These dances that they do out in African tribes, for instance, and the positions that their bodies are making, they're building these solid attributes: ankle stiffness, the ability to adduct and internally rotate the femurs, it's a great ability to jump and spring that we see in the Maasai tribe. They've got all these great things, and it isn't necessarily coming from intentional, I'm trying to create this atmosphere to create this one outcome. Actually, no, they're expressing culturally within a vibe and a tradition. And I just think we don't explore in those ways anymore. We don't sing, we don't dance, seldomly, we rarely laugh, so to speak. We are stuck within this mindset of better, 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 more. Oh, listen, pull back a little bit, enjoy the experience here. What's going on? And I go through this with my clients. I would always ask them about their environment, their family life, like what's going up for them. And I just probe with questions. I don't go heavy off the bat. I just have this kind of loose way of doing it. And what they choose to express upon then allows me like a little bit of an entry to re-bring that back up again. Because if someone has got a harsh relationship at home, or if someone has a good relationship, they might not want to express that with me, and that's okay. Yeah. But at least you kind of give them an arena to do that. But I think a lot of, and I listen to clients' feedback in relation to their relationship with agents. Agents generally only care when you're doing well. And if I was in that position as an agent, I'd want to care about as many aspects of your well-being as possible, because your success is my success, literally. Let alone anything else that goes on it financially. For this to work as a transaction and you to be the best, I need you to be well. But they don't ask these questions from what I'm hearing. They just literally go, oh yeah, I hear you're playing well, great, fine, fantastic, but phone goes down. When they're not playing well, when they're not in the manager's limelight, there's no conversation to be had. And I just think that is a really, really tough way, harsh way of doing things and expecting to get great outcomes from people that don't feel valued or loved.
You said it, preach. I think on that note, I mean, everyone on this podcast should by this point have a good blueprint for things they need to work on. Stephen, where should people reach out if they want to talk to you more?
I love this question because I'm always down for a chit chat. So I don't overly post on social media. I've done my best over the years to try and commit to it, but when I ask myself honest questions, I'm someone who, as something happens, I love to express and report upon it. So it could be a series of words that I post or something like that, but something that gets people to think. But anyone that's ever dropped me a DM knows they get an honest conversation out of me. And again, I go through a little bit of a vetting process, trying to make sure that your question is credible and you're not there to troll, because that happens online, sadly. But at the same time, I've invited many and anyone onto my WhatsApps, onto Telegram, to have a good conversation. I take it away from Instagram, which gives it more of a personal feel, longer voice notes, and that just gives that individual there a chance. So at Football Entangled UK is of course the handle for the Instagram. It's not necessarily you're going to get the clear-cut answer from my page, but what you do get is an opportunity of having an honest conversation. And 9 times out of 10 from those honest conversations, you go and ask better questions and you get better results as a byproduct. And I think you go back to the beginning of this conversation, that's pretty much how I started today, and it's how I live my life. If something is going wrong, if something is going right, I still want to ask better questions to get to better solutions. And I will add one little caveat. If you get to the point where you feel what mental fatigue is for you, put it down, go on a walk, and keep walking until that is gone. Main reason being, we all need to realize that the brain will continue to consolidate thoughts and ideas without me thinking about it. So I can get to overload on this, and I love it up there. But at the same time, you have to be strong with yourself, go on a long distance walk. And I'll relate this quickly back into football. Really, all my pre-season clients that I took through, I didn't put any running or sprinting. I left that to each club. I think every single person's club should provide an ample template for them to get to the stage that they need to when returning to pre-season. And my general conversation is, you don't want to turn up to pre-season day one ready to blow, like ready to go basically for the first game. You want to turn up in a good position that you can allow yourself to excel and understand what's going to happen in that training, and you grow from it. But I just said to my players, aim to walk 15 to 25 to 30,000 steps a day. Low risk, high rewards, mitochondrial density. We can go down the whole list of why this is beneficial, but walk, walk, and walk. All my players appeared in that top 70 to 100%, so that top tier of fitness marker results. And I didn't do anything with them other than let's just walk. Just their general engine of fitness. And it pushed them, like they got tired, 30,000 steps. It might not sound a lot to some people, could to others. But when they realize what they actually do on a general basis, apart from their training, they don't really move very much unless it's the car.
Yeah, exactly.
So for the first time, they're being challenged in a way. And as I say, it's low risk, high reward. And all the things that I do practical, I want low risk, high reward. I don't want you to go into these dangerous positions and places. You're playing 1 to 2 to 3 matches a week. You're having to train on these other days. You're having to go through S&C sessions. Like, why do I need to be the plonker that turns up the volume on things? No, we need to do the minimal effective dose that allows your body to feel fantastic to then produce results in these other areas for you. So yeah, dude, Football Entangled UK, let's have a good conversation. And to be honest, I mean, these are the best ways of doing things on podcasts. No doubt we'll get a few more of these out over the next few months.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good chance to express, if I'm honest, even me just going through this process, I consolidate thoughts and ideas over the past year since we last did one.
Yeah, I love hearing you talk, and it's always a huge moment of education, and helps me kind of settle down, reflect on everything that's been going on the last year, 2-3 years, because that's how long I've been doing this thing, at least. I know you're much longer in the game, but I always appreciate your time, Stephen. I'm sure everyone listening really appreciates your time. And guys, please, if you have any questions, reach out to him on Instagram, get things going. And of course, Stephen is inside the Entangled tribe, doing coaching in there as well. We can DM for more information about that. Very soon, we're doing a whole huge revamp of the Entangled tribe. So a lot of new, exciting things to look forward to. And like he's saying, low risk, high reward is the key, and that's what nature's all about. She's just wants results. Period. All right, guys. Thank you so much. That was episode 15 of the Purple Truth podcast. I'm looking forward to the next one. Talk soon.